my band career started up here, and it had less to do with pan and more to do with community work. Because I came to Canada in 1968, and from that time until, I guess, until now, I've been working in the community as a community worker, community organizer, that sort of thing. So the Steelpan program in 1973 started off as part of the Tubman Center, one of the Harriet Tubman Center's programs, which included the steel band. So the cultural program consisted of the steel band, well, of music, dance, and also arts and crafts. Since 1973, I've been always connected in some way to some steel band program, including, having taught uh, a steel band program, music program, a credit course from grades 10 to 10 to OAC, or grade 13 when they had it, for 29 years. In addition to teaching at the elementary level, the Toronto board, from 1980, like 80 also. I started the credit course since 1980, and also the elementary program in 1980. From 1973, because I was one of the founders of Afropan, which was an Afropan in 1973, which was Harriet Tubman Survivors. And even in terms of the name, I was one of the people who, in terms of survivors, one of the people who had the genesis of the name, which was survival. And then Keith Fu, who is deceased now, he's the one who came up with the name Survivors. So the first 1973, running the program. Remember, I told you about the name, etc. We were a program. We didn't have a name. So the name came after, when it was necessary for us to go out somewhere and do something like that. So that's where the name came in. So Afropan then became Average Toronto, Trinidad Average Steel Band, and so that's 1973, and became the name Afropan in 1977. So now the Afropan is celebrated the 50th anniversary this year. So that 50th anniversary of Afropan includes Harriet Tubman Survivors. So now the Afropan is celebrated the 50th anniversary this year. So that 50th anniversary of Afropan includes Harriet Tubman Survivors, of which I was one of the founders of Harriet Tubman Survivors. So, but that don't bring us to Pan Fantasy. So, because you asked me about the bands.
Yes.
Pan Fantasy came out of Afropan. And in terms of Pan Fantasy, I also have a connection. Or even at the time when Pan Fantasy and Afropan had a split, I was involved in that, along with to a large extent. Well, obviously other people who were part of the split, but I'm speaking in terms of being a member of Afropan. I was involved with Pan Fantasy. I was there when Pan Fantasy was formed. I was there when Pan Fantasy's name was given. Also, many people wouldn't know, but if you do a performance or so for Pan Fantasy, you would be paid by North York Intercommunity Youth Group. And that there is my program that I had at George Vanier Secondary as part of an extracurricular program. And the reason for that is because Pan Fantasy was allowed to utilize that vehicle, which came with grants and that sort of thing. So to this day, Pan Fantasy still uses the same, because that is what Pan Fantasy is. Pan Fantasy is not your intercommunity group. And I was also involved in Fanatics now, came out of Pan Fantasy. I was also involved in Fanatics, not as a founder or so, but just in terms of knowing the individuals who were and helping out also. And my middle daughter, Amanda, she played with Pan Fantasies from the age of 5. As a matter of fact, yesterday we were looking at some pictures of her playing in the band as the smallest in the group. So in terms of that, I've been involved in some of the major bands and projects around the Toronto area. That group was supposed to be a youth group, and that group was being set up for kids. It came at a time when there's some tough times in Toronto. It became the year of the gun, and then the government opened up opportunities to groups to have to run community programs, and I applied for the space. So I had instruments that I was able to utilize to start the program. So instruments wasn't really a problem. It was really space to house the program. So I got the permit for the place, etc. And I was going to start sort of canvassing the community, schools, etc., to get people to start in September. But at the same time, one of the Fanatics programs that accommodated some of the senior players folded in January of 2004, and one of I had done some work with them, not very much, just went and did a song or two. I think it was about 3 songs for them to do a performance for one of the annual events. So they were in touch with me, but I knew one of the ladies, which was Barbara's sister, who I worked with when I was supervising a international languages program. She was the Black Histories studies instructor. So she asked me, well, could we come and be part of the thing? So I said, well, yeah, okay. So then it was her, Barbara, Liz, Miss Brown, Betsy. So it was mostly those ladies and a few other ladies who aren't around anymore. So it was roughly about 10 or 12 altogether. And there, so we had the program. Our program was housed on Tapscott in Lester B. Pearson. So that was where the program first started.
And what was the band called?
There was no name.
Oh, I see.
No, it was just a community program. So the community program had a name, sort of thing, but there was no band. So the community program just had a name, not any band name. So the band name came a year after. So in terms of the Gemini journey, when the ladies came, some of their husbands used to come to drop them off, and they would stay and say, so then Mr. Brown, Keith, etc. So there's one other guy. So they say, well, since you're here, you know, play this, you know, try this, try this. So that they start that kind of thing. Then Everett came in the year after that. Jeff came in. Jeff was our drummer, etc. So the band didn't have any name or anything. The name of the band had to come up with a name because we had to perform at Snowflakes. We were invited to perform at Snowflakes. We were just a program. We didn't, at that time, that I could remember, perform anywhere, certainly not of note, anywhere like Snowflakes. So our first Snowflakes, we needed a name, and most of the ladies came from the Gems of the Antilles, which is an organization, local organization, which a philanthropic organization raised funds for programs in St. Vincent. So they raised funds and various programs, they allot certain money to them. They had one big event that they had tea at the end of the year. But that's it. So that tea, after they do that tea, that's the main thing. And then next year the tea again, that was the main fundraiser. So we didn't have we asked me about the name, we didn't have a name. So the name, we debated, etc. And then they say, well, Gems, because they were the gems of the Antilles. And then there were a few stragglers. So they say, well, Gems and Friends. So it was that June 2006 was our very first Snowflakes. And we were really invited to Snowflakes as a sort of comedy, as a comic relief. As a matter of fact, Wendy actually bought a ticket for Snowflakes to sit down in the front row to see what we were going to do. Because it's a bunch of old people who really can't play. So we went to Snowflakes, 2006. Now we're coming up to Snowflakes, 2023. And we haven't missed a Snowflakes year after year. Because when we went and they expected, some kind of laughing thing, it ended up being all right. It wasn't at the standard of all the other bands, but what we did was admirable. And also what we brought to the table, we brought a different aspect of performing in terms of we had Sil McIntosh, and saxophone and stuff like that. So from day one, we present ourselves as that type of band and that type of music, because we try to play all different genres of music and try to incorporate that into our shows. So whether classical, bossa nova, calypso, reggae, R&B, ballads, we try to stretch it out in terms of our repertoire. We're definitely not a carnival band, because we're a carnival time, which is Caribana time, Toronto Festival. We are not practicing. Our program ends at the end of June and then picks up again in September, which Caribana is in between there. We're not a party band, because we very seldom, if ever, play for any sort of dances or anything like that. Uh, so that most of the time when we are playing, people are listening. So it's more in a concert type setting, whether it's the full band or smaller groups, individuals, etc. Because we have different types of presentations during our calendar year. The band used to be run by the Gems of the Antilles. I had all the instruments were my instruments, apart from sopranos who own their own instruments, but from seconds down the basses were my instruments. Uh, and so the leadership of the program was the Gems of the Antilles. Now, we have always been, or I have always considered this activity a program and not a band. So, Gems of the Antilles ran the program from when we were formed as Gems and so say 2006 kind of thing until 2010. The way that our band works, we so like from the Gems of Antilles days, all our players have always been or participants have been members. So we have a membership so that everybody within the group who, well, for now, everybody at that time paid a membership fee, so we have a program, etc., etc. But the Gems of the Antilles would decide, well, okay, well, we would perform here, this, that, etc., etc. And they did quite an honorable job. In the time that they were doing it, we went on a trip to St. Vincent, which was quite a challenge logistically and otherwise. But we were able to pull it off and went for 3 weeks and played at some very nice places, the Governor General House, 2 cathedrals, sort of thing. So we were well accepted and welcomed, that sort of thing. And to a large extent, from what I understand, even our well, like when we left, it made an impact on the steelband, I guess, movement in St. Vincent, in that the way that music started to be presented took a bit of a shift. Because when we went down there, we were playing that sort of calypsos and stuff like that. And plus we had Sil McIntosh on saxophone. We had a violinist, Vin Cato, who played violin and pan. But so all of those type of aspects that we had within our performances. When we moved to St. Paul's, Lamoureux, I decided to coordinate the program because one of the things that was missing in terms of Gems and Friends and the Gems of the Antilles being running the program is a lack of experience in steelband. They had experience in different areas. So just as an example, their main goal was just to have the band perform at the T. So everything else became just a little slight thing, and they really didn't want to highlight the band. So in 2010, when we moved to St. Paul's, Lamoureux, I decided that I would coordinate the program. Since I was, in terms of all the things that we were doing, because I was always doing the music. I had the experience to move it forward. So that's when we came up with certain things. One being that we would that we aim for 10 performances per year, not 1 or 2 or 3, but we aim for 10. And since then, we've come pretty close. Couple of years we've exceeded that, but most years we were able to establish that 10. So when we were in 10, we were 9 or 8, or sometimes 11 or 12 kind of thing. So that is in terms of the leadership. However, everything that is done within the group is done through an unofficial committee. So we have a committee, the transport guys. We have Mrs. Brown and Betsy in terms of financial. We have people on the music, including Andy. So anything that is being done, I do very few things I do on my own. I usually consult with people within the committees before we move forward. So that is basically how the band is run and move forward. Gemini is a very unique program. We have, somehow we attract talent beyond our collective talents. And it's been around for the longest while. I'm sure it's at least about 10, 12 years since he moved up here to Canada. And he's not the only asset that we have. Within the band, we have people who do different things in terms of what they're an expert in, and volunteer, and everything works out. To have Andy as with the experience that he has is kind of invaluable. And many other people within the group bring their talents also, just like that. So collectively, that is what makes us so effective as a program, because individually, people might not seem to be as strong as some of the players in some of the other bands. But when we go out to perform, because of the way that we help each other and work together, I think we accomplish a lot. And the people who we have around us help us to move forward and to song and to produce a song that has become unique to us. More than likely, we're going to have some sort of 20th anniversary event. Also, doing a record is sort of is on the list also. That would take a little bit of extra work in terms of getting things prepared and stuff for that, which we have quite an extensive repertoire, but we have to make sure that things are cleaned up considerably in order to do a good job on that. The last 8 or 10 years, we've always had younger people, but those young people, but just like our own kids, we have to recognize that they're only around for a while. So all the young people who we had, many of them still would like to be part of the group, but when you're going to school in Kingston or Oakville, and plus you're working and you're going this and you're doing that, you're going back to Trinidad, it's an impossible situation. So that unfortunately, we don't have many young members, and that's the reason, because they do so well that they have to move on, and then their time, etc. Even if they're in the city, then they have their university work, or they're going to college, or working, etc. So passing on the torch is a very difficult and impossible job, because we're only looking. The question you asked me pertain to Gemini and their players, but if you look, and I guess more importantly, in the Toronto scene, at the pan tuners, since they are responsible for everything that we have as pan players, because they produce the instruments, etc. All of pan tuners are of retirement age, with maybe one or two exceptions. So that in terms of pan, we are at a very difficult kind of crossroad in terms of development, because the people who are needed to carry it on aren't really there and possibly able to participate in our program. And others, Pan Fantasies has the same issue, Fanatics, the same issue with the younger players. Plans for the near future, which is to continue some of the programs that we had before. So one of them was a theory program where we did theory every twice a month on a Thursday. Usually practice on Tuesday. So after February, we are going to be resuming those classes, theory classes, but also having sessions where individuals could try different things, either with small ensembles or on their own, with tracks or a cappella, etc.